There was a woman who came to me years ago, and she stood in my office trembling, tears streaming down her face, and she said something I'll never forget. She said something I'll never forget. She said, "Dr. Murphy, I've prayed so hard my knees are bruised. I've begged, I've pleaded, I've bargained with God, but nothing changes. My mind is my prison, and I don't know how to escape." I looked at her and I said, "My dear, you've been doing everything except the one thing that actually works. You've been begging when you should have been accepting. You've been pleading when you should have been receiving. And most importantly, you've been living in your problem when you should have been living in your solution." That conversation changed her life. And what I'm about to share with you today changed mine. Because I'm going to teach you the most misunderstood, most powerful, most immediately practical technique I have ever discovered in 40 years of studying the subconscious mind. It's called the mental movie method. And I promise you, if you truly understand what I'm about to teach you, if you actually do what I'm going to show you, your entire experience of reality will shift. Not eventually, not someday, but starting tonight, the very first time you close your eyes and do this correctly. Now listen carefully, because most people get visualization catastrophically wrong. They sit there forcing pictures into their mind like they're trying to paint on a canvas made of smoke. They grit their teeth, furrow their brow, and try desperately to see something, anything with crystal clarity. And then they wonder why nothing happens. They wonder why their desires remain dreams, why their goals stay distant, why their prayers seem to hit the ceiling and fall back down. But here's what I discovered, and this is going to sound strange at first. The harder you try to visualize, the worse it works. The more effort you put into it, the less power it has. Because visualization, real visualization, the kind that moves mountains and transforms lives, isn't about effort at all. It's about relaxation. It's about ease. It's about slipping into a state of consciousness where the walls between you and your desire completely dissolve. I call it the mental movie method because that's exactly what it is. You're not creating something. You're not forcing something. You're simply watching a movie in your mind. A movie where you are the star, where your wish is already fulfilled, where the life you desire is already your present reality. Let me tell you why this works. And I mean really works, at a level that will change how you think about your own mind forever. Your subconscious mind, that vast, infinite intelligence within you, cannot tell the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. Read that again if you need to, because it's the key to everything. Your subconscious cannot tell the difference between what's happening outside your head and what's happening inside it. When you imagine something with emotional intensity and sensory detail, when you feel it as real, your subconscious accepts it as fact. And here's where it gets beautiful. Your subconscious is the creative medium of your life. It's the builder. It's the architect. It's the force that hardens your mental images into physical facts. So when you repeatedly show it a mental movie of your desire fulfilled, when you live in that movie night after night with feeling and conviction, your subconscious mind goes to work. It begins rearranging circumstances, attracting opportunities, guiding your actions, and orchestrating what we call miracles, but what are really just the natural outworking of a law as precise as gravity. I've seen this work thousands upon thousands of times. I've watched broke men become wealthy. I've watched sick women become healthy. I've watched lonely hearts find love, anxious minds find peace, and people trapped in circumstances that seemed absolutely impossible find doorways opening where there were only walls before. And the technique was always the same. The mental movie method. Simple, natural, and devastatingly effective when done correctly. But here's what most teachers won't tell you, what most books gloss over, what most people never discover because they quit too soon. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. There's a way that works like magic and a way that leads to frustration and doubt. And today, I'm going to show you the difference. I'm going to walk you through this step by step, the way I wish someone had walked me through it when I was young and desperate and searching for answers in a world that seemed deaf to my prayers. So if you're someone who's tried affirmations and felt silly, if you've tried visualization and felt like you were just daydreaming, if you've tried to change your life with positive thinking and ended up more discouraged than when you started, I want you to know something. It wasn't your fault. You weren't doing it wrong because you're broken or lacking or insufficient. You were doing it wrong because no one taught you the actual technique. No one showed you the mechanics of consciousness. No one explained how your mind actually works. But I'm going to do that right now. And by the end of this conversation, you're going to have a tool so powerful, so immediate, so practical, that you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. Before I teach you the method itself, I need to give you a foundation. I need to explain 3 things that most people don't understand about the subconscious mind, because without this understanding, the technique is just a parlor trick. But with this understanding, it becomes a master key that unlocks doors you didn't even know existed. First, the subconscious mind is impersonal. It doesn't judge your desires. It doesn't care if you want $1 million or a glass of water. It doesn't have opinions about whether you deserve love or success or health. It simply accepts what you impress upon it and begins to express it in your experience. This is crucial because so many people sabotage themselves with guilt. They think, who am I to want this? Who am I to imagine myself healthy when others are sick, wealthy when others are sick, wealthy when others struggle, happy when the world is full of suffering? And I tell you plainly, that kind of thinking is not humility. It's false modesty. It's actually arrogance in disguise, because it assumes that you staying small somehow helps others. It doesn't. Your poverty doesn't feed a single hungry child. Your sickness doesn't heal a single patient. Your misery doesn't comfort a single suffering soul. But your prosperity, your health, your joy, these can become overflowing fountains that bless everyone around you. Second, the subconscious mind thinks in pictures and feelings, not words. This is why affirmations alone often fall flat. You can say, I am wealthy, I am wealthy, I am wealthy, until your voice goes hoarse. But if the picture in your mind is still one of lack, if the feeling in your heart is still anxiety about bills, your subconscious receives the picture and the feeling, not the words. Words are the language of the conscious mind. Images and emotions are the language of the subconscious. So when you create your mental movie, you're speaking directly in the native tongue of the creative power within you. You're bypassing the intellectual mind with all its doubts and arguments and limitations. You're going straight to the source. And third, the subconscious mind is most receptive in states of relaxation, particularly just before sleep and just after waking. This is what I call the golden time. In these moments, the critical, analytical, doubting conscious mind is quieting down. The gate between your waking awareness and your subconscious opens wide. And what you impress upon your subconscious during these moments sinks deep like seeds planted in fertile soil. This is why the mental movie method is primarily a bedtime practice. You're not just daydreaming during your lunch break, though you can certainly do that too. You're specifically creating your mental movie in that drowsy, peaceful state right before sleep, because in that state you have maximum creative power. Now, I want to tell you a story. It's a story about a man named Thomas. I changed his name, but everything else about this story is true. Thomas came to one of my lectures in Los Angeles in 1958. He was 32 years old, working as a janitor in an office building downtown, barely making enough to pay rent on a tiny apartment in a rough neighborhood. He had dropped out of school at 16. He had no connections, no advantages, no reason to believe his life would ever be different. But Thomas had a desire. He wanted to own his own business. He wanted financial freedom. He wanted to be able to provide for his mother, who had raised him alone after his father died. And more than anything, he wanted to feel like his life meant something, like he wasn't just surviving but actually living. After the lecture, Thomas came up to me and said, "Dr. Murphy, I liked what you said, but I'm going to be honest. I don't see how imagining being successful is going to pay my rent." I smiled because I'd heard this 1,000 times, and I said, "Thomas, I'm not asking you to imagine instead of working. I'm asking you to imagine while you're working. I'm asking you to plant seeds at night that will grow into opportunities during the day. Will you try something for me? Just 30 days. Every night before you sleep, I want you to run a mental movie. In this movie, you see yourself as the owner of a successful business. You're not forcing details. You're not forcing details. You're not worrying about the how. You're simply seeing yourself in your office, making decisions, shaking hands with satisfied clients, depositing money in the bank, Feel what it would feel like to be that man. Don't analyze it. Don't question it. Just do it every single night for 30 days with as much feeling as you can muster. Can you do that? Thomas looked at me like I was suggesting he flap his arms and fly to the moon. But something in his eyes told me he was desperate enough to try. He said, 30 days, fine. But if nothing happens, I'm going back to thinking you're all crazy. I laughed and said, fair enough. 3 weeks later, Thomas was cleaning offices after midnight like he did every night. He was emptying trash cans in the executive suite of a real estate company, and he found a crumpled paper in the wastebasket. Normally he wouldn't have looked twice, but something made him smooth it out. It was a list of properties the company was considering purchasing, with notes about which ones they were rejecting and why. One property caught his eye. It was a small commercial building being sold for unpaid taxes. The company had rejected it because it was in a, quote, declining neighborhood, the same neighborhood where Thomas lived. But Thomas had been doing his mental movies every night for 3 weeks, and something had shifted in him. Instead of seeing that building as a problem in a bad neighborhood, he suddenly saw it as an opportunity. He knew that neighborhood. He knew the families there. He knew there was no grocery store within walking distance, no laundromat, no place for people to cash checks without taking 2 buses downtown. The next day, on his day off, Thomas went to the county office and found out exactly what was owed on that building. It was $1,200. He had $300 saved. He went to his mother, who had $400 she'd been saving for years. He went to his uncle, who loaned him $500. And Thomas bought that building. Within 6 months, he had opened a small grocery and check-cashing business on the ground floor. Within a year, he had paid back his uncle and was turning a profit. Within 3 years, he owned 3 more buildings in that neighborhood and had hired 15 people, most of them neighbors who needed work. When I saw Thomas again in 1962, he drove up in a new car, wearing a suit, and he handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $1,000 made out to our church. He said, Dr. Murphy, I don't care if people call it coincidence. I don't care if they say I would have found that paper anyway. I know what happened. Every night I became a different man in my mind, and then the world rearranged itself to match. That's all I know, and that's all I need to know. I tell you Thomas's story not because it's unusual. I tell it because it's typical. This is what happens when you understand the principle and apply the technique. You don't need to know how your desire will come to pass. You don't need to figure out the steps, arrange the circumstances, or force the doors open. You simply need to live in the end. You need to create a mental movie of your wish fulfilled and watch it every night with feeling until your subconscious accepts it as real. And then mysteriously, naturally, almost magically, the pathways open, the opportunities appear. The right people show up. The right information finds you. The doors that were locked swing wide. Now let me teach you exactly how to do this. I'm going to give you the method step by step, and I want you to understand that this is simple. The power is not in complexity. The power is in repetition, in feeling, in the naturalness of it. So don't make this harder than it is. First, decide what you want. This seems obvious, but most people have never actually done this clearly. They have vague wishes, fuzzy hopes, conflicting desires that cancel each other out. You must be specific. I want to be successful is not a decision, it's a dream without direction. I want to earn a specific income doing work that fulfills me is a decision. I want to be happy is vapor. I want to feel peaceful in my daily life and cultivate meaningful relationships is concrete. Write it down. The act of writing crystallizes thought. When you commit your desire to paper, you extract it from the realm of fantasy and plant it in the soil of reality. Don't just think it, declare it. Your subconscious needs clarity, not confusion. Second, believe that it is already yours. This is where most people stumble. They say, I'll believe it when I see it. But the universe operates on the opposite principle. You'll see it when you believe it. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you imagine something with feeling, with conviction, with sensory detail, your subconscious accepts it as fact. And once accepted as fact, it begins the process of making it manifest in your external world. This isn't about pretending or lying to yourself. It's about understanding how your mind works. If you constantly say, I want to be wealthy, you're affirming lack, you're telling your subconscious that you don't have it. Instead, feel the feeling of already having it. Walk in that assumption. Think from the end result, not toward it. Third, impress your subconscious through repetition and emotion. Your subconscious learns through consistent impression. One positive thought surrounded by 1,000 negative ones will accomplish nothing, but one thought repeated with feeling day after day will sink deep into the subconscious and take root. This is why affirmations work not because of magic, but because of psychology. When you repeat something with emotional intensity, you create a neural pathway. You teach your subconscious a new pattern. Over time, that pattern becomes automatic, effortless, natural. Use the moments before sleep. In that drowsy state between waking and sleeping, your conscious mind relaxes its grip, and your subconscious becomes highly receptive. This is the golden moment. Imagine your desire fulfilled. Feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction. Fall asleep in that feeling. Fourth, act as if it is already true. Your actions must align with your beliefs. If you claim to believe you're worthy of success but behave like a failure, your subconscious receives a mixed message, and mixed messages produce mixed results or no results at all. When you act as if your desire is already fulfilled, you send a clear, unambiguous signal to your subconscious mind. You walk differently. You speak differently. You make decisions from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. This is not pretense, it is alignment. It is living from the end result, and the subconscious mind, which cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one, accepts this as truth and begins to manifest it in your external world. Let me share with you a story that illustrates this principle beautifully. I once counseled a woman who had been unemployed for over a year. She came to me desperate, defeated, and utterly convinced that no one would hire her. I asked her a simple question: how would you feel if you already had the perfect job? She closed her eyes and described it: the confidence, the relief, the sense of purpose. I told her, starting today, you will feel that way every single day. You will dress as if you're going to that job. You will dress as if you're going to that job. You will carry yourself with that confidence. You will act as if the offer has already been made. She looked at me as if I had lost my mind. But she trusted the process. Every morning she dressed professionally. She visualized herself at her desk, contributing, thriving. She felt the gratitude of being employed. Within 3 weeks, she received a call for an interview she hadn't even applied for. A former colleague recommended her. Within 5 weeks, she had the job. But here's the key: the job didn't create her confidence. Her confidence, cultivated through acting as if, created the opportunity for the job. Your subconscious mind is always listening. It is always watching. When your thoughts, feelings, and actions are in harmony, you become an irresistible force. You stop sabotaging yourself with doubt, hesitation, and contradictory behavior. You become congruent, and congruence is magnetic. Think of it this way: your subconscious mind is like a garden. Whatever seeds you plant, whether flowers or weeds, will grow. It doesn't judge. It doesn't discriminate. It simply accepts what you give it and brings it into manifestation. When you plant seeds of abundance, health, and success with your conscious thoughts, and then nurture those seeds with aligned feelings and actions, you create a harvest beyond your wildest dreams. But here's where most people stumble. They plant seeds of prosperity in the morning, then spend the afternoon pulling them up to see if they're growing. They affirm abundance while checking their bank account with anxiety. They visualize success while their body language screams defeat. This is not alignment. This is conflict, and conflict in your consciousness creates chaos in your circumstances. I want you to understand something profound. Your feelings are the language your subconscious understands best. You can repeat affirmations 1,000 times, but if those words aren't saturated with feeling, they're just empty sounds. When you say, I am prosperous but feel poor, which message do you think your subconscious receives? The word or the feeling? Always the feeling, always. This is why I constantly emphasize the importance of feeling the reality of your desire as though it's already accomplished, not as a future event, not as something you hope will happen, but as a present fact. When you can feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of your wish fulfilled right now, in this moment you impress that state upon your subconscious mind. And what is impressed must be expressed. Let me share something with you. I've worked with countless individuals over the years, and I can tell you without hesitation that the ones who achieve their goals fastest aren't the most educated or the most talented. They're the most emotionally committed. They're the ones who dare to feel their success before it's visible. They walk with confidence when their circumstances suggest they should cower. They speak with authority when others question their credibility. They act from the end result, not from their current limitations. This is the secret of acting as if. You're not pretending. You're not being fake. You're simply choosing to embody the consciousness of the person who already has what you desire. That person doesn't beg. That person doesn't doubt. That person expects good things because they know they're worthy. When you assume this state, you automatically think different thoughts, make different decisions, and take different actions. Your entire world reorganizes itself around your new assumption. This is why affirmations alone often fail, because you're trying to plant new thoughts in old soil. You're trying to convince yourself you're confident while still carrying the assumption that you're not good enough. It's like trying to grow roses in concrete. The mental environment must change first. I learned this watching people who came to me frustrated. They'd say, "Dr. Murphy, I've been affirming abundance for months, but nothing changes." And when I dig deeper, I discover they were still checking their bank account with anxiety, still making decisions from lack, still seeing themselves as someone struggling financially. They were speaking one thing but assuming another, and assumption always wins. Your subconscious doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you deeply accept as true about yourself. It responds to the feeling tone, the emotional conviction behind your thoughts. When you truly assume a new state, there's no effort involved. There's no fighting, no forcing. You simply know it's done. Let me show you how this works practically. Suppose you want to be confident in social situations. Most people approach this backward. They wait to feel confident before acting. They think, once I become confident, then I'll speak confident, then I'll speak up, then I'll connect with people, then I'll be myself. But this keeps confidence perpetually in the future. The correct approach is to assume you are already that confident person right now. Not tomorrow, not when conditions change. Now. You ask yourself, how would I carry myself if I were completely at ease with people? How would I speak? What would I notice? What wouldn't bother me anymore? And here's the key: you don't try to become this person. You assume you already are this person, and you move through your day from that assumption. When the old anxiety arises, you don't fight it. You simply return to your assumption. You remind yourself, I am someone who is naturally comfortable with people. This is who I am. At first, it might feel like pretending. That's fine. Persistence in assumption eventually hardens into fact. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between what you're assuming and what's real to it. Your consistent assumption is reality. Feed it long enough, with feeling and conviction, and your outer world must conform. This is the creative power you possess right now. Now I want you to grasp something profound. Your assumption isn't just a thought, it's a state of consciousness. When you assume something persistently, you begin to inhabit that state. You're not pretending or wishing, you're actually occupying the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And here's where the magic happens. The world has no choice but to reflect the state you occupy. Think of a woman who wants to be married. She doesn't sit around imagining a distant wedding day, hoping some prince will arrive. No. She assumes the consciousness of a happily married woman now. She feels the ring on her finger. She feels loved, secure, cherished, not someday, but today in her imagination. She wears that state like a garment. She moves through her day from that assumption. And because she's living from the end, circumstances, people, and events begin to arrange themselves to match her inner conviction. The right person appears. Obstacles dissolve. What seemed impossible becomes inevitable. I've seen this again and again. A man assumes he's successful in business. He doesn't worry about how the contracts will come or where the clients will appear. He simply feels successful now. He walks with that quiet confidence. He makes decisions from that state. And his outer world begins to mirror his inner assumption. Opportunities open. Doors that were closed suddenly swing wide. This is not luck. This is law. The subconscious mind, fused with your assumption, becomes the architect of your reality. It works tirelessly beneath the surface of your awareness, arranging all things to conform to the pattern you've impressed upon it. Your job isn't to figure out the How? Your job is to remain faithful to the assumption, to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it hardens into fact. Think of assumption as a seed planted in the rich soil of your subconscious mind. Once planted, you don't dig it up every hour to check if it's growing. You don't stand over it with doubt, questioning whether it will sprout. You water it with faith. You protect it from the weeds of contradiction. You trust the invisible process happening beneath the surface. This is where most people fail. They plant the seed of their desire through assumption, but within days or sometimes hours they uproot it with fear and disbelief. They say, "I assumed I was wealthy, but my bank account hasn't changed." They don't understand that assumption requires time to gestate in the subconscious before it manifests in the outer world. I'm not asking you to be passive. I'm asking you to be persistent in your inner conviction while you take whatever outer actions feel natural and inspired. But the action must flow from the assumption, not from desperation or lack. When you assume you already are what you wish to be, your actions carry a different energy. They're confident, relaxed, and powerful. Let me share something with you that changed my own life. Years ago, I desired to be a successful lecturer and author. My outer circumstances suggested otherwise. I had little money, few connections, and no platform, but I made a decision. Every night before sleep, I would assume the feeling of being exactly what I wished to become. I felt myself standing before large audiences. I heard the applause. I saw my books in the hands of grateful readers. I didn't just visualize it, I inhabited that reality emotionally until it felt more real than my present circumstances. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it happened. Opportunities appeared that I couldn't have orchestrated consciously. The right people crossed my path at the right time. Doors opened where there had been only walls. But here's what I want you to understand. It all began with assumption. The outer world simply reflected back to me what I had persistently assumed to be true in my inner world. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, "But Joseph, what if my past has been filled with failure? What if everyone around me tells me I can't do it? What if the evidence of my senses screams that I'm not the person I want to be?" And to that I say, your past does not equal your future unless you persist in dragging it with you into the present moment. Every time you replay an old failure, every time you replay an old failure, every time you rehearse an ancient hurt, you are assuming it into your present reality. You are selecting from the infinite possibilities available to you the one reality you do not want. Let me share something that transformed my understanding completely. I once counseled a woman who came to me broken, defeated. She had been applying for positions in her field for 2 years, 2 full years, and received nothing but rejection letters. Her savings were depleted. Her confidence was shattered. She sat in my office and said, "Dr. Murphy, the facts are clear. No one wants to hire me." I looked at her and said, The facts are simply the outer manifestation of your inner assumptions. Tell me, when you go to sleep at night, what do you assume about yourself?" She paused, and tears welled in her eyes. "I assume I'm not good enough. I assume there's something wrong with me that everyone can see but won't tell me." There it was, the hidden assumption that was selecting her reality from the infinite field of possibilities. I taught her to change her inner conversation. Before sleep each night, she practiced assuming the feeling of being valued, wanted, and employed in her ideal position. Not wishing, not hoping, assuming. She felt the handshake of congratulations. She heard the words, "Welcome to the team." She wore the feeling of success like a comfortable garment. 3 weeks later, she received a call for an interview. 4 weeks after that, she was employed, not just employed, but in a position superior to anything she had previously applied for, with a salary that exceeded her highest expectations. What changed? Not the economy, not the job market, not her qualifications. Her assumption changed, and reality reorganized itself to match that new assumption. This is the principle you must grasp. Your assumptions harden into fact. They solidify. They become weight and substance in your world. Think of assumption as a seed planted in consciousness. You don't see the seed working beneath the soil. You don't watch it transform. But given time, given the steady nourishment of your attention and feeling, it breaks through the surface as a visible, tangible thing. Your outer world is simply the garden of what you've been planting within. I'm reminded of a man who came to one of my lectures years ago. He was drowning in debt. Bill collectors calling day and night. He couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Every time the phone rang, his stomach would knot up. He was living in pure terror, and that terror was his assumption. He assumed he would always be broke. He assumed disaster was permanent. I told him what I'm telling you now. Stop reacting to the appearances. Stop letting the mail, the phone calls, the bank statements dictate your inner state. You must assume the feeling of financial freedom first, not after the money comes, not when the debt is paid. Now, he resisted, of course. He said, "But Dr. Murphy, how can I feel free when I owe $12,000? How can I pretend everything's fine when it's not?" And I said, "I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to choose a new assumption. Pretending is surface. Assumption is depth. Go to sleep each night feeling relief, feeling the weight lifted. Imagine opening your mailbox and finding checks instead of bills. Don't do it once and forget it. Live in that assumption until it becomes natural." 6 months later, he wrote to me, an unexpected inheritance from a distant relative, a job offer that doubled his salary, the debts cleared. But here's what struck me most in his letter. He said the money came after he had already changed. He'd become a different man internally before a single dollar appeared. His assumption shifted, and the universe caught up. You see, your assumption is not wishful thinking. It's not daydreaming or fantasy. It's the blueprint from which your experience is constructed. When you assume something deeply, genuinely, when you feel it as true, you set forces in motion that you cannot see but that are absolutely real. Most people do this backwards. They wait for proof before they'll believe. They say, "Show me the money, then I'll feel abundant. Give me the relationship, then I'll feel loved. Heal my body, then I'll feel whole." But that's not how consciousness works. You must become the thing first in consciousness. You must be it before you see it. This is the law that governs all manifestation, and it cannot be reversed no matter how much your rational mind protests. Think of it this way. A seed doesn't wait to see the tree before it begins expressing its treeness. The oak is already complete in the acorn. The rose exists fully in the seed before a single petal unfolds. Nature doesn't argue with this principle, only humans do. Your subconscious mind is that seed. Whatever you plant there with feeling and conviction must, by law, express itself in your outer world. But here's where most people stumble. They plant the seed, then immediately dig it up to check if it's growing. They affirm abundance on Monday, then spend Tuesday worrying about bills. They visualize health in the morning, then spend the afternoon telling everyone about their symptoms. This is not faith. This is vacillation. And a vacillating mind creates a vacillating experience. I once knew a woman who desperately wanted to marry. She attended every lecture, read every book, practiced every technique. She visualized her wedding day with perfect clarity. She could see the dress, smell the flowers, hear the music. But then, when friends asked about her love life, she would sigh and say, "I'm still waiting. Nothing's happening. I'm beginning to think it's not meant for me." Do you see what she was doing? She was building with one hand and tearing down with the other. In her visualization, she was the bride. In her conversations, she was the victim. Her consciousness was divided, and a house divided against itself cannot stand. I finally said to her, "You must stop announcing your lack. Every time you speak your loneliness, you're impressing it deeper into your subconscious. If you were already married, would you go around telling people you're alone? Then stop doing it now. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and remain faithful to that assumption." She protested, "But that feels like lying." And I told her what I'll tell you now. It's not lying, it's loyally occupying the state you wish to manifest. You're not denying facts, you're refusing to give them power over your future. The facts of today are simply the frozen results of yesterday's assumptions. They have no power except what you give them. When you remain faithful to your wish fulfilled, you are not being dishonest, you are being an architect instead of a tenant. Most people are tenants in their own consciousness. They accept whatever reality hands them and call it being realistic. But you were born to be an architect. You were born to design and construct the dwelling place of your dreams. Let me share something that happened in my own life. Years ago, I faced a situation that appeared utterly impossible. The evidence against my desired outcome was overwhelming. Everyone around me saw only one conclusion. But I made a decision that changed everything. I decided to live from the end, not hoping for it, not wishing for it, living from it. I walked differently. I spoke differently. I made decisions as the man who already had what I desired. And do you know what happened? The entire situation rearranged itself in ways that defied all logical prediction. This is what I mean by assumption. It's not passive. It's not weak. Assumption is the most powerful action you can take because it sets the entire machinery of creation into motion. Your imagination is not a toy. It's not entertainment. Your imagination is the workshop of God within you. When you imagine something and feel it real, you are not fantasizing, you are creating. You are impressing upon the formless substance of consciousness the pattern that will become your experience. The Bible tells us that God created man in his image. What does this mean? It means you have within you the same creative power that spoke worlds into existence. Your consciousness is that power. Your imagination coupled with feeling is the voice of God in you. When you assume something, you are speaking as God speaks. You are not asking, you are decreeing. You are not begging, you are commanding. And the entire universe must respond because you are using the law that governs all manifestation. Now, let me give you the most powerful technique I ever discovered for dealing with the negative reactions of your conscious mind. I call this the midnight planting method, and it has changed more lives than perhaps any other technique I've taught. Here's what you do. Right before you fall asleep at night, when you are in that drowsy, peaceful state between waking and sleeping, you plant your desire as a seed in your subconscious mind. You don't argue with it. You don't debate it. You simply drop it in like a farmer drops a seed into fertile soil. You say something simple. I am prosperous, or I am healed, or I am loved. Just one simple statement. And this is crucial, you let it go. You release it completely. You don't dig it up to check if it's growing. You don't worry about how it will happen. You simply trust that the subconscious will do its perfect work while you sleep. Why is this so powerful? Because at night, when you're drifting into sleep, your conscious mind loses its grip. The critical, doubting, fearful conscious mind steps aside and your subconscious becomes highly receptive. It's like the soil is already turned over, soft and ready. The seed drops right in without resistance. I had a woman come to me who had tried everything to overcome her financial struggles. She had affirmed, visualized, and prayed for months with no results. I taught her this midnight planting technique. Every night, as she drifted off to sleep, she would simply whisper to herself, I am financially free. That's all. No long prayers, no complicated visualizations. Just those 4 words as she fell asleep. Within 3 weeks, she received an unexpected promotion. Within 2 months, she had paid off half her debt. Within 6 months, she was completely debt-free and had savings in the bank. She wrote to me and said, it felt like magic, but I know it was law. Yes, it was law. The law of the subconscious mind accepting what is impressed upon it in that receptive state and then working all night to bring it into reality. This is why sleep is so important. Your subconscious mind never rests. While you sleep, it is reorganizing your world according to the last impressions you gave it. If you fall asleep worrying, you are programming failure. If you fall asleep in gratitude and faith, you are programming success. This is why the ancient wisdom teaches, asterisk as within, so without asterisk. Your external circumstances are always a mirror of your internal state. You cannot have a rich, abundant life with a poverty consciousness. You cannot have healthy relationships while nursing thoughts of resentment and betrayal. You cannot experience peace while entertaining mental chaos. The subconscious mind does not argue with you. It does not say, are you sure about this? It simply accepts. It is the faithful servant that never questions the master's orders. When you say, I am tired, it responds, yes, master, you are tired, and begins to produce the biological conditions of fatigue. When you say, I am strong and energized, it responds with equal obedience, releasing vitality into your body. This is not mysticism. This is the fundamental law of mind. Your body is constantly listening to your thoughts, and your world is constantly conforming to your beliefs. You are never truly stuck. You are simply replaying the same mental program over and over, expecting different results. I want you to understand something profound. Every single circumstance in your life right now, your bank account, your relationships, your health, your opportunities began as a thought. Before it was matter, it was mind. Before it was physical, it was mental. The house you live in was first an architect's thought. The device you're listening to this on was first an engineer's imagination. And the life you are living was first shaped by the dominant patterns of your thinking. Now, here is the magnificent truth that changes everything. If your thoughts created your current reality, then new thoughts can create a new reality. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are the creator of circumstance. The moment you grasp this, truly grasp it, everything shifts. But understand, this is not about positive thinking alone. Affirmations without feeling are like seeds without water. You can repeat, "I am wealthy," 1,000 times, but if your emotional state contradicts it, if deep down you feel unworthy or afraid, your subconscious rejects the suggestion. It's the asterisk feeling asterisk that impresses the subconscious mind. It's the emotional conviction that activates the creative power within you. This is why I've always emphasized the absolute necessity of entering a drowsy, relaxed state before you impress your subconscious mind. When you're in that twilight state between waking and sleeping, what I call the alpha state, your conscious, critical mind steps aside. The doorway to the subconscious opens wide. In this receptive state, suggestions accompanied by feelings sink deeply into the fertile soil of your inner mind. Think of a time when you were completely absorbed in a beautiful piece of music or lost in the wonder of a sunset. In those moments, your analytical mind wasn't chattering. You weren't questioning or doubting. You were simply asterisk feeling asterisk, simply asterisk being asterisk. That's the state of consciousness you want to cultivate when you're impressing your subconscious with your desires. The subconscious mind doesn't argue. It doesn't reason. It accepts what is impressed upon it with feeling and conviction. If you approach it with doubt, with fear, with emotional contradiction, you're impressing it with those negative states, and that's exactly what it will outpicture in your experience. I've counseled thousands of people over the years, and I can tell you without hesitation, those who succeed are not necessarily the most intelligent, the most educated, or the most talented. They are the ones who understand this principle of feeling. They are the ones who can imagine their desire fulfilled and sustain the asterisk feeling asterisk of that fulfillment until it becomes natural, until it becomes their dominant mood. Your subconscious doesn't care whether the feeling comes from an actual experience or an imagined one. If you can generate the feeling of success, of health, of love, of abundance in your imagination with sufficient intensity and repetition, your subconscious accepts it as real and proceeds to make it real in your outer world. This is not fantasy. This is not wishful thinking. This is scientific prayer, the conscious, deliberate direction of feeling and imagination to impress the subconscious mind, knowing with absolute certainty that what is impressed within must be expressed without. The feeling is the secret. The feeling is the power. Master the art of feeling, and you master the art of living. Let me show you something profound. When you truly understand the feeling principle, you begin to notice something remarkable. The world responds to your inner state with uncanny precision. It's as if reality itself is a mirror, reflecting back to you the dominant feeling you carry within. I've watched this play out thousands of times. A man comes to me and says, "Dr. Murphy, I affirm prosperity every day, but nothing changes." So I ask him, "When you say these words, what do you feel?" And almost always, the answer reveals the problem. He feels anxious. He feels desperate. He feels the absence of what he's claiming. You see, his words say abundance, but his feeling screams lack. And it's the feeling that reality obeys. Your subconscious mind doesn't understand English, French, or any spoken language. It understands the language of feeling, the language of emotion, the language of the heart. You can speak affirmations in 10 different languages, but if the feeling beneath them contradicts your desire, those words are empty sounds floating in the air. This is why so many people fail with techniques and methods. They focus on the technique rather than the state. They count their repetitions like a miser counting coins, thinking that quantity will overcome quality. But I tell you, one moment of genuine feeling accomplishment is worth more than 1,000 hollow affirmations. Think of it this way. If I gave you a script to read for a movie, and you read those lines mechanically, without emotion, without conviction, would anyone believe the character? Of course not. Yet this is exactly what people do with their mental diet. They recite their desires like actors reading phone book entries, wondering why the universe doesn't applaud. The master principle is this: assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and dwell there. Don't visit that feeling occasionally like a tourist visiting a foreign country. Live there. Make it your permanent address. Let that feeling become so natural, so habitual, that its opposite would feel strange to you. I once worked with a woman who desperately wanted to heal her relationship with her daughter. Years of conflict had built walls between them. I told her, don't visualize a future reconciliation as something distant. Feel it as accomplished now, right now, this moment. Assume you already have that loving relationship. She began to practice this daily, not hoping for it, feeling it as present reality. She would sit quietly and feel the warmth of her daughter's embrace. She would feel the joy of their laughter together. She would feel the peace of harmony restored. Within 3 weeks, her daughter called unexpectedly. Within 2 months, they were closer than they'd been in a decade. What changed? Not the circumstances first, but her inner state. She changed her feeling, and the world rearranged itself to match. This is the pattern that governs all manifestation. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you asterisk or asterisk. More precisely, you attract what matches the emotional frequency you're broadcasting from your subconscious mind. And here's the profound truth that most people miss. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between a memory, an imagination, and a present reality. To your subconscious, a vividly imagined scene asterisk is asterisk real. When you feel it deeply, when you give it sensory richness and emotional texture, your subconscious accepts it as fact. This is why affirmations alone often fail. You can repeat, I am wealthy, 10,000 times, but if underneath those words you asterisk feel asterisk poor, if your dominant emotional state is one of lack and anxiety, then lack is what you're impressing upon your subconscious. Words without feeling are like seeds without soil. They have no power to take root. But when you enter into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, when you close your eyes and imagine so vividly that you can asterisk feel asterisk the reality of your desire, everything changes. You're not pretending. You're not hoping. You're not hoping. You're asterisk experiencing asterisk it in consciousness, and to your subconscious mind, that experience is as real as anything happening in your physical world. I've seen people heal themselves through this understanding. A man with chronic pain was told by doctors he'd never be free of it. He began each night imagining himself moving freely, feeling the joy of a pain-free body. He didn't focus on the pain leaving. He focused on the asterisk feeling asterisk of wholeness. Within weeks, the pain that had dominated his life for years began to fade. Within months, it was gone entirely. The doctors called it spontaneous remission. I call it consciousness reshaping reality. You see, your body is not separate from your mind. Every cell in your body responds to the commands of your subconscious. When you repeatedly impress a new image upon your subconscious, when you asterisk feel asterisk yourself healthy, abundant, loved, successful, your entire being reorganizes itself to match that image. Your nervous system shifts. Your energy changes, your very chemistry alters, and then, as naturally as a plant growing toward light, opportunities appear. Circumstances shift. People respond to you differently. You become a magnet for the experiences that match your inner state. This is why the work of transforming your inner conversations is not superficial. It is the most practical thing you can do. When you change what you are saying to yourself, you change what you are broadcasting to the world. You change the signal you are sending out into the invisible field of consciousness that surrounds you. And here is something else you must understand. The world does not argue with you. It simply reflects. If you walk around saying, I never get a break, the world does not stop to debate whether that is true. It simply gives you more experiences that confirm your belief. But when you change that inner speech to, good things are always coming to me, the world begins to rearrange itself to match that new assumption. This is not mysticism. This is the mechanics of consciousness. Let me give you a powerful illustration. Consider two people facing the same financial challenge. Both have unexpected expenses. Both feel the pressure. The first person spirals into worry. Their inner dialogue becomes a loop of fear. I can't afford this. I'm falling behind. Money is so hard to come by. They replay worst-case scenarios, mentally rehearsing disaster. And what happens? Their energy drops. Their creativity shuts down. Opportunities that might have appeared are missed because they are too consumed by anxiety to notice them. Their very demeanor repels help. The second person also feels the concern they are human. After all, but they consciously redirect their inner speech. I always find a way. Resources come to me. I am resourceful and capable. They imagine solutions. They talk to themselves the way they would talk to a trusted friend. And what happens? Their mind stays open. They notice an opportunity they would have otherwise overlooked. Someone offers help. A new idea arrives. The same challenge, two completely different outcomes, not because of luck, but because of the inner conversation that shaped their state of consciousness. You see, your subconscious mind does not judge whether your inner speech is true or false. It only accepts what you consistently impress upon it. If you constantly tell yourself a story of limitation, your subconscious works day and night to make that story your reality. But give it a story of abundance, of capability, of divine support, and it will work just as tirelessly to manifest that instead. The beauty of this principle is that you don't need to convince your subconscious mind. You don't need to argue with it or present evidence. You simply need to persist in the impression you're making. Your subconscious doesn't debate, it accepts and executes. Think of a child learning to walk. The child doesn't analyze the mechanics of balance or muscle coordination. The child simply has the impression that walking is possible, natural, and within reach. And through persistent effort, guided by that belief, the subconscious coordinates thousands of complex movements until walking becomes automatic. The same principle applies to every area of your life. When you want to change your circumstances, you must first change the habitual thoughts that created them. This isn't mere positive thinking, it's a deliberate reprogramming of the creative mechanism within you. You must become a mental watchman, guarding the gate of your mind against destructive thoughts while welcoming those that align with your desired good. I've watched people transform their financial situations not through harder work alone, but by changing their mental attitude toward money. Instead of saying, "I can never get ahead," they began affirming, "Money flows to me easily and naturally." Instead of resenting others' prosperity, they blessed it, knowing that in an infinite universe, another's gain doesn't diminish their own supply. And as they persisted in this new mental habit, opportunities appeared, ideas emerged, and circumstances arranged themselves in their favor. The same holds true for health. Your body is constantly responding to your habitual thinking. When you constantly worry about illness, when you speak of your ailments as permanent fixtures, when you identify yourself with limitation, your subconscious accepts this as instruction. But when you begin to affirm perfect health, when you see yourself as vitally alive and energetic, when you give thanks for the healing power already at work within you, your body responds. I'm not suggesting you ignore medical wisdom, but rather that you align your mental habits with wellness rather than disease. Consider relationships. If you habitually think, "Nobody understands me," or "I'm always alone," you create an invisible barrier that repels the very connection you seek. But change that inner conversation to, "I am surrounded by loving, supportive people, and I easily connect with others," and you'll find your entire social experience begins to shift. Your subconscious will guide you to smile more naturally, to reach out with genuine warmth, to notice opportunities for connection you previously overlooked. This transformation doesn't happen because you're forcing yourself to be social or pretending to be someone you're not. It happens because you've changed the fundamental instruction set your subconscious is working from. You're no longer broadcasting loneliness and attracting more of the same. You're broadcasting connection and drawing it naturally into your life. I've seen people who spent years feeling invisible suddenly become the person others gravitate toward, not through any external change in appearance or status, but purely through this shift in internal conversation. The subconscious mind is incredibly powerful in the realm of relationships because so much of human connection happens below the level of conscious awareness. The way you carry yourself, the subtle signals you send through body language, the energy you project, all of this is controlled by your subconscious programming. Consider your health as another profound example. Medical science increasingly acknowledges what I've taught for decades. The mind has extraordinary influence over the body. Your habitual thoughts create your habitual feelings, and these feelings directly impact your physical well-being. When you constantly worry about illness, when you expect your body to fail you, when you hold on to resentment and anger, you create biochemical responses that undermine your health. The person who wakes up saying, "I always catch whatever's going around," is giving their subconscious a command to lower immune defenses. The person who affirms, "My body is strong, resilient, and perfectly capable of maintaining health," is activating the body's natural healing mechanisms. This isn't wishful thinking, it's working with the fundamental connection between consciousness and physical form. I'm not suggesting you ignore medical care or pretend serious conditions don't exist. What I am saying is that your mental attitudes are either supporting or sabotaging your body's remarkable capacity for health and healing. Countless people have experienced dramatic health improvements, not through different treatments, but through different thinking. They stopped identifying with their illness. They stopped rehearsing their symptoms. They began to see themselves as whole, healthy, and vibrant, and their bodies responded to this new instruction. Your subconscious doesn't judge whether your thoughts are helpful or harmful, it simply accepts them as commands and works to fulfill them. This is why the language you use with yourself matters so profoundly. When you say, "I'm always sick, I can't lose weight," or "I never have enough money," you're not simply describing your current reality or programming your future experience. Your subconscious mind takes these declarations as blueprints and begins constructing the circumstances that match them. I once worked with a businessman who constantly said, "I work so hard but never get ahead." For years, this was his mantra. And indeed, no matter how many hours he put in, financial success eluded him. When we began working together, I had him change just one thing: his internal dialogue. Instead of focusing on struggle, he began affirming, "Money flows to me easily and abundantly. My efforts are richly rewarded." Within 6 months, opportunities he had never noticed before began appearing. A former colleague offered him a partnership. A client referred him to a lucrative contract. His income doubled, not because he worked harder, but because he changed the instruction he was giving his subconscious mind. The same principle applies to relationships. If you constantly think, "Nobody really understands me," or "People always disappoint me," you create an invisible barrier that repels genuine connection. Your subconscious will guide you toward people and situations that confirm this belief, and you'll unconsciously behave in ways that push others away, all while believing that you're the victim of circumstance. But when you begin to affirm, "I am surrounded by loving, supportive people, and I attract wonderful relationships," something shifts. You become more open, more receptive, more genuinely interested in others, and they respond to this energy. The relationships you desire begin manifesting naturally, not through force or manipulation, but through the magnetic power of your changed consciousness. This is why the law of assumption is so powerful when it comes to relationships. You're not trying to change anyone else. You're not trying to force someone to love you or admire you. You're changing the only thing you can truly change: your own consciousness. And when your consciousness changes, your world must reflect that change. I've seen this principle work miracles in marriages that seemed beyond repair. One woman came to me after years of a cold, distant relationship with her husband. She had tried everything: talking, pleading, threatening, even silence. Nothing worked. I told her to stop trying to change him and start changing her own mental conversations. Every night before sleep, she would imagine a scene that implied harmony in her marriage. She would feel his arms around her, hear him speaking lovingly to her, sense the warmth between them. She did this faithfully, despite seeing no immediate evidence in her outer world. Within 3 weeks, her husband began to soften. Within 2 months, he was the affectionate partner she had imagined. What happened? Did he suddenly decide to change? No. She changed her assumption about him, and he responded to the new energy she was projecting. He became in her outer experience what she had already accepted as true in her inner world. The same principle applies to every relationship in your life. Your boss, your children, your friends, your neighbors, they all reflect back to you what you assume to be true about them and about yourself in relation to them. When you change your assumptions, you change the relationship. But here's what most people miss. You cannot fake this. You cannot pretend to assume something while secretly believing the opposite. Your subconscious mind knows the truth. It knows what you really believe, beneath all the affirmations and visualizations. This is why persistence is essential. You must saturate your consciousness with your new assumption until it becomes natural, until it feels more real than the current circumstances. This brings me to something vitally important about the law of assumption and time. Many people give up too soon because they don't see immediate results. They assume something for a day or two, see no change, and conclude that it doesn't work. But understand this, there is always a gap between the planting and the harvest.